Hey guys, so I am finally back to do the video that I've been promising. I really wanted to share with you guys exactly why we left K12 and Virginia Virtual Academy and why we will never go back. I'm not going to really get into the things that K12 does right. I mean, that's not why you're here. Let's face it, you saw the title of the video and you clicked on it for a reason. So there are other videos out there that you could pick. I also am not going to get into a whole lot of the background on how we ended up at K12, but I just want to say, like, in the simplest form, we went because it was supposed to be flexible. I can put more background information in the description and in the comments below. And I'm also going to be referencing some things throughout this video that I will put links to below. Like there's some stuff on brain health and things like that that I feel like it would just be way too much to try to explain that in the video. So if you're looking for more information about those things, I will have that down below. Okay, so to give you though the most basic background information for those who don't know, K12 is the national platform and they basically provide the curriculum and the website. K12 schools though in each state go through a state school usually, which in Virginia, that would be Virginia Virtual Academy. First, I want to tell you the things that K12 did that led to us leaving. And for those who don't know, we were actually, our family was in materials that K12 sends out to their investors. Lucy has been featured for years in their like welcome back to school course that everyone has to go through or used to go through. I don't know if they do it anymore, but they used to have to, students and families would have to go through this orientation class on just kind of an overview of like the way the online school is set up. And they would have a couple of students featured in that with why they needed the flexibility or how they came to K12 and how it benefits their family. And Lucy was actually one of those kids. So if you have been to K12 schools within the past like 4 or 5 years, you've seen Lucy on a slide every year. We've been on their website, we've been in their investor materials, we've been actually in the OLS itself, which is the online school. So to go from that to saying nobody ever send your child there ever, that's got to be like a pretty big leap, right? Two things that I think K12 gets majorly wrong, and that is their websites and their curriculum. It kind of just comes down to that, and it's that simple. With their curriculum, I liked their courses until about third grade. That's when I started noticing, wow, this is a lot. Their curriculum, though, it gets increasingly more dry and just not engaging as you go, which a lot of people might be like, well, yeah, that's kind of how school is. But that doesn't have to be how learning is. There's just so many more engaging courses out there. By the time our kids were done with K12, they actually said that they hated school because it was just so tedious and there wasn't anything that was actually sticking. So that's another part of the problem with their curriculum, is that they try to do too much. It is great to have advanced curriculum. I am all for it. In Lucy's early elementary days, like kindergarten through second grade-ish, she was in the advanced learners program and she finished kindergarten I think 5 months ahead of schedule, and she was able to test that school year and then get her first grade materials. Where K12 goes wrong though is that they're not developmentally on track. They try to do things ahead of time in a way that actually stresses out the brain a little bit more. And I can put links to articles and research down below. There's a certain amount of advanced work that's actually not healthy because it can stress out the brain and it can lead to higher cortisol levels and it can make kids burn out sooner and prevent them from thriving later on. We were seeing that a lot with our kids. They come to master the curriculum and the courses and not the actual material. So Lucy was a mostly A student. She was inducted into the Junior National Honor Society her last year at K12. Well, whenever we started homeschooling after that, I tried to pick up in stuff like math right where she left off. But seeing it in a different format, we actually realized that she was much more behind what we thought she was going to be. And I thought, how can that be? She's in a very advanced program. She's making A's and B's. She's in the Junior National Honor Society. This doesn't make sense for her not to know fifth grade math when she's actually doing advanced, like eighth and ninth grade math, really, at that age. And we came to realize she had gotten really good at doing the courses, not the material. Because when you throw so many things at them, they can't retain everything and they're going to struggle to retain the basics. So, and we saw it in tag also. My feedback was always this: it's great to have advanced options, but also having options that are more developmentally on a different track. Tons of schools have an advanced track and a general track. So why not do that? Offer both. And I don't know if it's happened because obviously I'm kind of out of the loop now, but I was told around the time that we were leaving, someone told me, oh yeah, K12 is actually like developing that right now. Like they listened. And what they're doing is the current track is going to be the general track, and then there's going to be a more advanced one. And I was like, okay, that's not what I said. So there are a lot of kids who are suffering because they're being pushed along through these courses, and they keep passing them through and saying, yeah, it's fine, he'll get it eventually, she'll get it eventually. And then they get to higher level classes and they're really struggling and their stress levels are going up. They're living with this heightened sense of anxiety when it shouldn't be like that. It doesn't have to be such a nightmare for the kid and the parent. There should be a happy medium where people are being challenged and they have something, they have goals and they can rise to them, but you have to also be realistic. We want our kids to be lifelong learners. I'm every day looking up things that I don't know about that I want to just learn more about. And we want them to be the type of people who can say, I don't know about that, and I want to dig deeper into it. I want to research it because it's awesome to like learn something new. But K12's very heavy curriculum and the way that it's set up with it just being so tedious and so much work, it completely squashed that. So it took a lot of deschooling to kind of get over that. So I don't, after doing, I've spent the past couple of years doing a lot of research on education and how it impacts, what methods and how they impact kids like later on in life. And I will never be convinced that K12 is a healthy education model. I'm not going to be convinced of it. And that's coming from someone who had a kid who was in the Junior National Honor Society, who was making A's and a B once in a while. Even with that, I don't think it's healthy. I think that there's other approaches out there for all kids that engage them more and are going to truly like set them up better for the long run. K12's curriculum doesn't do that, and they don't actually seem interested in the brain science behind how education works and how to develop a lifelong love of learning. Like that's what you want ultimately. I feel like whether your kid is an A student or whether they do their best and still make much lower grades the whole time, I think every parent would probably want their child to just love exploring and to always want to do their best and stuff. But I feel like K12, they definitely take that out of the equation in favor of high test scores and saying our kids are advanced, they're learning this at this age and whatever. Teaching a third grader algebra principles means nothing if that kid then is a 21-year-old who doesn't know how to do basic personal finance, or who has an anxiety disorder that prevents them from being able to engage in the things that they want to engage in. Like, eventually that stuff just doesn't matter as much. And K-12 really has not gotten that memo. On the subject of brain health, the other thing that really makes me not recommend K-12 to anyone is their website. And that is because they have a great team of web developers. The problem is, though, you can't just design a website for a school based on web design. You have to take in mind brain science whenever you do it. For those of you who don't know, my husband was actually wounded in Afghanistan back in 2012. Been a TBI caregiver over 10 years. And in 2016, the kids and I were actually in a car accident, and we all sustained TBIs as well. So we're a brain injury household. And back when my husband was first wounded, he actually took a direct hit to the head, and the Army just completely ignored it. They would only treat his other symptoms. They didn't have any interest in acknowledging or treating his brain injury. So we have had to do years and years of research and advocacy in the area of brain health and brain science. So I kind of geek out over this stuff. Like, I find it really fascinating. I'm not a math and science or a logical person by any means, and I think that's actually what draws me to it, is it's so different than my actual wheelhouse. Whenever I was advocating for my husband and also for the kids in their treatments and things, I've learned so much over those years. And it's fascinating to see it play out in real life, because K-12's website, you can think, okay, I can navigate it just fine, but they're not efficient. They don't know how to make an online school. And I don't really trust an online school that doesn't know how to make an online school. Throughout the day, we all have a finite capacity, okay? That everyone has one. People's limits are different, and the things that drain us might be different. K-12's website was not designed with any of that in mind. Back in 2018, maybe 2018 or 2017, I actually had an hour-long meeting with their development team, and they acted very open to the feedback that I suggested at the time, but then it just kind of went out the window. Cognitively, you can process a certain amount of things before you get frustrated or just tired, maybe. And sometimes it's not even a physical feeling like that, but maybe you just aren't performing quite as well. Like, those times when you're texting and you're like, why do I keep, why does this typo keep happening? Why do I keep having all these errors? It's possible that you're cognitively drained at that point. And again, like I said, it could be because of visual things, it could be because of auditory things, it could be because of things that you can feel or whatever is going on at the time. There's a lot of different things that play into that. But cognitive load it kind of involves, like, when you're looking at something, how much do you have to process to look at a website and say, oh, that's where I need to go. That's the button I need to click on. And I know this probably might seem really boring and tedious to some people, and I apologize for that. But the bottom line is that K-12 has designed their middle school and their high school, and unfortunately now their elementary school, with that recent redesign, there's 5 extra steps for everything that you have to do. There's 5 extra clicks or 4 extra clicks or whatever to get from point A to point B, when they could just as easily make that information accessible from various points on the website. But they don't do. They want you to navigate your day the way that they want you to. That might not be the way that makes sense for your brain. And it might not be the most efficient way to navigate the courses. Whenever we first started, the elementary website was phenomenal. It did have some extra things visually that were not necessary. But other than that, though, it was the navigation and the use of it was honestly, it was flawless. When I sat down to do Lucy's schoolwork with her, I could do it in a way that makes sense for her and a way that makes sense for me. Kids deserve to have their time respected. And I'm big on respecting kids' cognitive energy too. Like, it's not fair just to drain them and say, well, you're a kid, this is what you have to do. It just has to be this way. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Like, if we can make things more efficient for our kids, then they should be efficient, because when the little things like navigating a website, when those are more efficient, then they can actually put more cognitive energy into their schoolwork and into, guitar lessons afterwards, or playing soccer, whatever it is that they like to do afterwards, and whatever things that help them to thrive and develop who they are as people who are going to be contributing to society. Like, they should have their time respected. Again, this probably sounds like a really insignificant thing, but when you think about how much mental energy you have to put into things every day and how busy kids and families are, it just seems so inefficient to not factor that in when you make a website. This just kind of seems like common sense to me, but K12 doesn't really seem to be bothered by it. This is my last point also. They really put investors before students and before families. And just one quick little, like, again, seemingly insignificant point that, if you really, really think about it, like, does not set well. K12 actually changed their name officially to Stride a few years ago or something, and they did not notify families. What they did was they talked it over with investors, and they didn't take a temperature check to see if students and families would even like it, if it had like a positive connotation. It doesn't, by the way. They just told investors, and they had them in on it. And it wasn't until one mom was Googling something random, and she actually found a press release later that families were actually notified that their school had changed its name. If you're going to prioritize test scores and you're going to prioritize investors and appearances over student health and well-being, I'm not for it, and I will never recommend that type of organization ever. This is the second part of this. What does Virginia Virtual get wrong? And the answer is basically everything. I know that sounds awful, but we went from feeling like this was the school that our kids were going to graduate from to, I actually reported them to the Virginia Department of Education, because I'm pretty sure they're breaking a couple of laws whenever it comes to special education. I'm going to put down below in the description how Virginia Virtual Academy is funded and how it works in the state of Virginia. I don't know if this is the exact setup that other states have, but basically, just to put it in a nutshell, Virginia Virtual Academy gets a lot of its funds, maybe all of them, from partner districts. So what that means is the city of Richmond, for example, they used to be a partner district of Virginia Virtual Academy. And what that means is they would say, okay, we will give you money to fund 100 students. And Virginia Virtual would say, cool, thanks for the money. Here's the kicker though. These partner districts, they have requirements. So they can come back and say, okay, we'll give you this money, we'll fund 100 students, but all of your students have to have this many hours in live class sessions every week, and they have to take these numbers of standardized testing. And in Virginia, that's called the SOLs. Those are the requirements that partner districts put on Virginia Virtual Academy. And when we were first there, it was a great environment. Everyone at the school, teachers, admin, they would always be like, oh my gosh, okay, we know you guys have a very intense situation, because we started when my husband was actually still living in military hospitals. So we were very transient. We had to drop everything that we were doing on a regular basis to go to a hospital. and we would be doing work in hospitals, we'd be doing work in command meetings with the Army. The tone was always, what can we do to make this program work for your family? That all changed when the pandemic happened. The tone went from, we want to do what we can to keep you here because we value you as a family, changed from that to, you should just be thankful that your child has a seat here. Okay. And that eventually became, well, if this isn't going to work for you, then I think maybe you need to find another program because we can't do anything about it. An example of this is actually that when Tag, I mentioned in the last family update video that Tag has been having some like neurological type episodes. And whenever he first started having those, he was practically bedridden for a whole month. And his teachers, that was around the time that we withdrew him, but his special education teacher and his general education teacher told us, well, we hope he gets better, but you need to get him in live classes. Otherwise, this is not the program for you guys. And I was like, what? I mean, I get it, but at the same time, that was not an appropriate response from a public school. It's all about meeting those partner district requirements, and that comes before everything else. Let's talk about middle school for a minute, because Lucy was actually the kid that I pulled from Virginia Virtual Academy first. And the problem was they were starting to require that all students in middle school, regardless of their grades or medical situation, all students were required to be in a lot of live classes throughout the whole week. So they had a lot of regular coursework, and then they would have these hour-long live class sessions, or like 45 minutes or something, for each subject. And then they also, by the way, Virginia Virtual has found a way to add homework onto the stuff that you already do at home, which makes no sense. So she was doing all of these things, and she actually has a documented brain injury that's negatively impacted by extra screen time. She's an AB student who is in the Junior National Honor Society, and they refused to even consider her for a 504 plan or to modify anything, even though, again, she had the health reasons to support that. And she also had wonderful grades and things like that. So she didn't need the extra time in classes. The extra time in the live classes was actually making things worse for her because of so much screen time. So I really pushed back a lot. And finally, the acting middle school principal at the time, she called me on the phone and she said, yeah, I'm actually the one who put that policy into place, and this is why. There's some students in middle school who are cheating, and we can't think of another way to deal with that. So in order to make sure they're learning things and are going to do better on their state testing, we're requiring all students be in these classes. Now, again, I know that these things happen in other schools as well, but I am just so big on respecting kids as whole persons individually. And it does not show my child any respect if she is making grades that are honor society level, and at the same time she's going to be punished for someone else cheating. That's not acceptable for me at all. They have to figure out another way to make sure that people aren't cheating. That's just all there is to it. The middle school principal said to me, if you can think of a better solution, then please let me know. And I am all for like being a problem solver. I actually used to do that on the military policy side a lot. We identify a policy that's not working, and then we come up with solutions. see which ones would actually work with like second and third order effects, and then you put those solutions into practice. I'm all for that. But if you're a school and you don't know how to handle situations like that do come up in school, because there are kids who are going to cheat. That is just a fact of life. It is going to happen, and we have to have ways of dealing with it. But if your only idea is that we punish everyone, that's going to backfire in the long run, because what are these kids going to do whenever they're working so hard and they're realizing, wait, I'm being treated the same as this kid over here who's cheating? It just teaches other people to cut corners. It teaches them that their work really doesn't matter. And that's going to have really bad repercussions in the long run. So I just had to say, that's not for my child. I have the ability to withdraw her, so I'm going to withdraw her. And um, super glad that we did. Lucy's actually really thriving in homeschool. She loves the approach that we do. She's starting to really like love school again. When we have to take a break for a little while, she gets super excited whenever we can get back to school, and she'll tell you that she loves it. So that makes me really happy. I feel like we're doing something right. If she loves learning things, that's the point. If she's working hard, doing her best, and actually loves learning about new things, mastering skills that she needs for the future, then that's great. I'm happy with that. The last thing that I'll say about Virginia Virtual Academy, I truly feel like they're breaking some laws whenever it comes to special education. So Tag had been in special education, and he had a couple of years of amazing teachers, and I was so happy with the help that he was getting and the progress he was making, and everything was like able to be modified. His IEP was fantastic. In 2022, that drastically changed. And I talked to the person who is kind of the person who is steering the direction of the special education department. She told me, this was in person, face to face. She was saying, and this is someone that I used to have a ton of respect for as an educator. She was just an amazing and compassionate teacher. And the last time I saw her, though, this was in 2022, she was telling me that the goal is always to move kids back into gen ed. Now, that's a fine goal if it's realistic. And if it's not realistic, it's only going to hurt the child in the long run. Maybe they get there eventually, but everyone is going to either they're going to get there on their own time, or they're not going to get there, and they need something else that's going to help them thrive. Virginia Virtual Academy basically told me at TAG's last IEP meeting, they said, we don't do self-contained anymore. I was like, okay. I honestly, like, I am not even sure that it's completely legal. They took things right out of the IEP, and this was their reason for it. We just don't do that anymore. They couldn't say we're not required by law to do that, because they actually are required by law. Being a public school, they have to provide certain things. And they have just decided, my theory is, I think that it's because of partner districts. They're far more concerned about appeasing them and getting good test scores than they are actual student well-being. Like, we've literally seen that with TAG. They have eliminated a lot of services that I don't think they can actually do. And I know that myself and other special education parents have gone to the Virginia Department of Education about them. I'm not sure the status of any of that. I actually need to look into it again, because I'm kind of curious as to how that's turned out. They have gutted their special education department. It is all about getting kids back to general education as fast as they can. With us, there was scientific data backing up the fact that that was not a healthy situation for him. And there was literal video evidence. There was evidence in his progress. Like, they had so much data. For those who don't know, special education and IEPs and 504s, all of that has to be backed up by data. There's testing involved, there's observations involved. Everything that we had pointed to this list of things being what he needs to thrive and make progress. But in his last IEP meeting, the real kicker for me was met with all of this evidence that this setup that we had been experiencing and that we had been using, everything pointed to that being perfect. But the person who is officially in charge of the special education department looked me right in the eye. We were on Zoom, so everybody, cameras on, everything. She looked me right in the eye and she said these words: "This is what's best for him because the state says so." I'm sorry, what? That floored me. And I actually cried in that meeting because this was a school that I really believed in. And we had had years of great experience. To see them go from a school, I literally would have recommended this school to anyone in any situation with any child of any ability level, any family circumstance. I literally said, all needs can be met here, because all needs were being met there. To see it go from that to what it is now, honestly, it broke my heart, because I was like, I firmly believe in making every effort to leave a place a little bit better than when you arrived, like try to just add something positive, and to see it go from what it was to this mess that completely puts investors and partner districts and test scores above actual student learning and student health, it crushed me. Like, I don't want anyone to think from this video like, oh wow, she's really like spewing a lot of like, hateful stuff, or like, man, she's angry. I am outraged for children and parents, I will say that. But I'm also deeply, deeply crushed, because I know what it could be and I've seen what it's become. And it's just so disheartening. Like, direction that the admin has gone in, it's heartbreaking for a school to take that kind of stance. The curriculum being as intense as it is, now Lucy would always fly through her courses in elementary school. She would get through them pretty quickly, especially up until like third grade. So we would only work for like 2.5 hours a day, maybe 3 at the max. With tag, it was a little bit different. So I would actually have a hard stop. I would say, okay, after working for these amount of hours, you're just getting frustrated. You're not retaining anything. Science shows it's better to stop, take a break, and come back to it the next day refreshed. There are families who have been told by the current elementary principal that, you know what, if your kid has to work until 8 o'clock at night to get their work done, that's what they have to do. That's not healthy. That is not healthy. I cannot stress enough how unhealthy that is for children. So, but that's the direction that the school is going. That's their vibe now, More and more, everything is about the test scores. Everything is about meeting those requirements, whether it's realistic or not. All of the live class sessions, except for TAG's special education classes, they honestly weren't beneficial, because the gen ed ones, they're all about test scores. They're all about, well, this particular skill is going to be on the SOL. So you need to master this skill, this specific thing. Like, we're going to pluck out of a whole year of math, we're going to pluck this one skill out, and you need to learn that because that's going to be on the test. They're becoming the epitome of teach to test. Education shouldn't be like that. And if you have the ability to have your kids at home why are you going to replicate what they're doing in brick and mortar public schools? Why are you going to replicate that when there are other options? I don't recommend Virginia Virtual. I don't recommend K12. And the two are actually more connected than you think, because this is why the stuff happening at Virginia Virtual Academy should actually concern you, even if you don't live in our state. So, the head of school, who basically has been there since the start of Virginia Virtual Academy, she was like the person who was above the principals of the middle school, elementary school, and high school, kind of like a headmaster type situation. She actually, the year that we withdrew the kids, she was great, like whenever we first got to the school, but she completely ignored all my requests for like discussion on these very serious matters that were happening. And come to find out, I was told that she actually left Virginia Virtual to take a job at K12. So she steered the school through the pandemic and into these new changes and stuff. And now, after completely changing the atmosphere to something really toxic at Virginia Virtual Academy, now she has a job at K12. Or at least she did. I don't know if she still does. I need to look her up, but she went to work for K12. I don't know what position she has, but unfortunately, as great as she was at the start, I don't trust her leadership. I have zero confidence in it because of what the school has become and because of the people that she put in charge, of the different principals and stuff who came in. They put true education and student well-being bottom of the priority list. So I'm I'm bummed about all that, guys. I don't relish saying any of it. I really, really, really wanted things to turn around. Even if we still left, I really wanted to be able to make an impact and have things turn around for the other people who are still there. But everything just kind of fell on deaf ears. And until more people start leaving, I think it's just going to keep being ignored. So I hope that this helps you guys. It was longer than what I wanted it to be, but I really hope that this helps you guys know exactly why we left K12 and why I really, really don't recommend getting involved with any of it. It's disappointing. Who knows if they'll change? I hope that one day they will make some improvements. But in the meantime, though, I don't recommend it. This is why we left, and it's why we won't go back. But I'm excited to share with you guys more in the future about how we homeschool, and because I really feel like we have found a great groove with the way we set things up, and the kids are thriving. They went from like just hating school and really struggling with some things to actually like thriving and making progress. So thanks for sticking with us. And I'm going to put a link to this video in the comments or the description of like every K12 video. That way people have all the right information, because I want to be responsible about that. So if you came to us and subscribed because of our K12 videos, we love you and we appreciate you. And if you're still with K12, we wish you nothing but the best. I really hope that it's better for you and that they kind of turn certain things around. And I hope that you'll stick with us, because we do things besides school. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with us, guys.